In this video, we're going to look at 3 different ways to use depth in our website designs, and more importantly, how we can create those effects in Elementor. So Elementor is a really fantastic page builder, website builder, whatever you want to call it. And it's really important to know what the tool is capable of, and that is to some degree going to affect the designs that you come up with. Now, visual design and achieving visual hierarchy is really important when we want to bring users to a call to action. It's a bit different to visual design where, such as flyers and posters, we want specific information to stand out. But in a website, it's all the more important to make a call to action really become obvious to our website viewers, and very quickly. Now, using depth can really make a design pop, and different to visual design, you're able to use different tools in websites. And we're going to look at 3 different ways that you can achieve depth in a design in this video. And if you stick around to the end, I'm also going to show you a little tool in Elementor that not a lot of people realize is there, but it definitely creates a sense of depth. It's not one to use all the time, use it sparingly, but when you do, it will really make a great impression. And I'll show you that at the end of the video. Okay, let's jump into the editor and have a look at some of these options. Okay, so method number 1 on how to create some depth in your design is the use of shadows. And you can already see it on my tutorial site. You'd have seen this in other tutorials that we have the use of shadows already here. Now you can see this on the header here, and we also have it even, making more emphasis on this button, on the call to action button on the header there. Now, obviously you've got to use shadows tastefully. A few too many can just, make it all look a bit crazy, and it's difficult to draw the eye to something purposeful. But here I think it's doing okay, and it's especially good on a header when you're making it scroll with the design. We see that the page is going underneath, and it looks quite smooth for that. There's an obvious depth because we have the header moving over the design, or should I say the page moving under the header, and that effect is created by the shadow. And just the shadow. If we remove the shadow, well, I'll show you. This looks really nice. It's a lovely clean design. And then when we move, we've got the sense that it's going into it, but we don't have that sense of depth, do we? See if we can just whack the shadow back there for use later. Just want to quickly show you that we have a shadow being used as well on this button. Now this actually from one of my tutorials, this is a global widget, I've just remembered. That's why they are the same. Now, it's really quite a good thing to use on this one. The shadow just helps lift the button a bit, obviously to the foreground, creating depth, but it helps it to be more noticeable in such a busy picture. Now, you need to pick your hero images well so that they're not too busy, so that you can bring some emphasis to something like the call to action or to text. And so the shadow really helps here. The shadow would also help a lot in terms of making some text readable, and I'll show you that in a second. Okay, we've also got the use of a shadow here to create depth when we action something. So as we float over the different services in the silo section, we have the shadow just sort of creating that interaction. It almost begs the person to, that there's an effect of interaction. It's like, yes, I want to click on it. It's mimicking a button click. Now, we often see this effect when we float over something and it lifts out, again with the use of a shadow, and I'll show you that in just a moment, but I'm just giving you the tour. So yeah, we can see that shadows really do help to create depth, and that can really help either emphasize something on a background or on a busy background, so we can emphasize the call to action, or to just emphasize that we can take action. And of course, this actually mimics the button click of an action, and then we just want them to click and do that. Right, so let's go on in and have a bit of a play. There are different ways we can use shadows, obviously. First of all, let's look at how to create a shadow so that you know how to do that in Elementor. Let's just we'll grab a fresh button. We'll grab this one, and we'll just give it a bit of a color quickly. Right, that's a nice big button, and to be honest, in terms of clean design, it looks really nice without a shadow. But How do we add a shadow to an element? Well, we find it in style, and this is the case with all of the elements, and then go on down and we'll see box shadow. And if we click on that, you'll see it immediately puts the shadow on there. I can go back to default or click it and it puts on a shadow. Now this is with basic settings, so you can click on it and you can play around, and there might be times when you really want to use a different color. So actually, to create a more natural shadow, let's say this background was something like a blue, you might actually want to put a bit of a blue into that shadow. That would be more natural because it's darkening the color of the background. But most people tend to just bung on a gray or something like that. Okay, then we have these different settings here. And so thankfully we've just got these sliders, so you can left to right it, but just keep an eye on the number because sometimes you do just want to reset. And then we've got vertical and the blur and then the spread. Now people often get a bit confused about these, but watch, if I put a big spread on and take away the blur, it becomes more solid. Okay, so then if I take away the spread and put the blur, we'll see that we're not really seeing it, but I need to bring that spread out. Oh, delayed a bit there. Okay, so what settings are good for a lot of creating a lot of depth? Well, we want it to look a bit more natural, don't we? So generally we want to bring these down, and I tend to think that something quite blurred and then bringing a bit of vertical value in there, and minimize the spread but increase the blur. It tends to give a little bit of a down shadow. Can't really see it there, so let's show you on this actual container. I'm going to select here, go along to style, nip down to border, and in there we find box shadow. Now you can see there's already a bit of a haze there. I'm going to bring the vertical down, and then this is where the magic happens really. Increase that blur but bring in the spread. We might see it disappear a bit, so we need to increase that blur, and you'll see that what we end up having is it's not going right to the edges, and so that really creates that sense of depth, like it's really lifting. I think that looks really quite nice. We can bring the vertical again and we'll see more of that effect. Look at that. That's really good. I like it. Don't forget as well that you can change these values for a hover effect. So go on to hover and then click on the box shadow. And often the easiest thing is to actually get the values. So 0, 15, 44, 2, 0, 15, 44, 2. And so if I hover over it, it's not doing anything different because it's the same value. But now if I change something and I hover, you see that we have that movement created by the shadow, again, bringing a sense of depth. Okay, that's how to create a shadow. And then you can start to use it on different elements and see what you come up with. So we can see on the text that we might do something like, style on the heading, and then text shadow, and we see that we've got a white shadow here, but this is a bit helpful to make it readable on the background image there because it's quite fuzzy for smaller text, and of course we can increase the blur and help with that a little bit more. Something else I really quite like to do is if we change the color of this, so I'll just duplicate it so we can compare. Now, first of all, let's apply a shadow to it. So text shadow. Okay, that's cool. Then we're going to change the text color to white. Oh, I've got the exclusion on. That's why. There we go. Now we can play with that text shadow and really make it quite nice. So we want to bring in, look at that. Oh, sorry, I didn't want the horizontal. And you can see that that text starts to pop out there. Now, it looks quite pearly now, and I really quite like that. So that's pretty cool. Don't forget, you can duplicate and go, okay, I like that. I might use it, but let's have another play. So grab the text shadow, bring that vertical value down again. And it's just about getting that balance between the the values to make sure it's readable and that the depth is actually helping it, one, stand out, and two, be readable. Quite like that. Which one do you prefer? Okay, let's have a quick look at inset shadows and depth. Okay, so if I select on this container and go along to border, you can see that on the box shadow I have, no, I don't. What am I doing? Oh, it's on the inset one, isn't it? So hover, box shadow, and it's inset. And look at that, it creates this little push button effect. And again, that depth is just helping us feel like there's action. Right, cool. So that's how we can use shadows to create a sense of depth. And that has many different purposes, doesn't it? Okay. Okay, second way that we can create depth in our designs is the position. Now, obviously, every method is going to be assisted with the other methods. So position with a shadow would be absolutely awesome. But let's have a quick look at how we can play with a bit of positioning to create a bit of depth. Okay, so we've got two columns in, two containers. Paint this one as sort of a charcoaly, yeah, something like that. I've said it, damn it. I say that in every tutorial and I keep wanting to not. And then let's grab this one, and what we'll do is, right, beauty tips straight to your inbox. That's all cool. And then we're going to grab a picture into this one and we're going to use that as the background picture. Should we do that? Yes, so let's do that. So grab a background picture. And swing them out a bit. Obviously, I'm not being very precise with all of this, but what we're going to do is just play with the position of these containers, or you might think of these as columns in the if you're used to sections and columns. And so what we're going to do is just play around with the position of them. So the first thing that we can do is bring it down. Okay, so we're going to use a margin on this and go 30. And we would actually like a negative margin as well, and to bring that out like that. Okay, and then we want to shift it over a little bit, so we're going to drag it to the left with a negative margin, and let's bring it to something like that. Set it again and center these up so that it is like that. Okay, so simply because we have this stepping outside the confines of these boxes behind it, or well, so it looks anyway. It just looks like it's pushed out from the normal display and that it's coming towards us. This isn't perfect depth, but it interrupts the design. We do know that this is layered, and it might not be layered in the entirely best way, but let's take away the color of this one. So remove that and white all of these. I think you'd agree that what we have there is clearly an image that is in front of, or outside the confines at least, that this image is forwards of these layers. So let's pop along to preview, to scroll down the page, and there we go. Now we need to bring that in a bit, obviously, play with it, do what you want to do. But there we go, we have depth created there. Now, obviously, if we pop along there, and let's remember how to do this, go to style, down to border, box shadow. If we chuck on a shadow there, we're instantly going to get more of a depth effect. And that's really going to lift it to our attention as well as off the page. Yeah. Bring a bit of vertical there, and actually maybe it would make more sense like that. Bring in the spread, but increase the blur. Cool. Let's preview. Very subtle, but you can see that, and that's really quite nice. Okay, so again, I've dipped back to the shadows there, but you can see that the position of this really helps to emphasize that. Now, another way that we can create depth in our designs, which is exclusive to websites and apps, and something we can't just do in print or visual design, is we can use movement to create that sense of depth. Now, you would all have seen parallax images. So the background of a section would be moving at a different rate to the items on top of it. So I'm going to show you a couple of versions of that, and then we'll look at a few other ways that we can create movement on the page to create depth. Okay, first of all, let's go down to this one here, and we're just going to click on the section, and just the simplest way to do it, and you can do this with a free version of Elementor, and that's why I thought I would show it, is pop along to attachment, and we're going to fix it. And so when we scroll, we have the sense of movement, and because something is moving underneath something else, a bit like this, we have that sense that these items are on top. Now they don't have shadows, but they are just moving separately to the item that is clearly behind it. It's very much like this just being in a different position and stepping outside of the confines is creating that sense of depth. But here we most certainly have the sense that these are in front of the image behind. So that's pretty cool, and that's something you can do in the free version of Elementor. Nipping back though, if you do have Elementor Pro, and if you decide to go and get it after this, please do check my link in the description. You pay nothing further, but blah blah blah, helps me to keep doing these videos. Right, let's put that back to normal. So what we can do with Elementor Pro is let's pop along to scrolling effects, and let's put on a vertical scroll. Okay, now this is on speed 4 at the moment, and we can speed it up. And bear in mind that in order to be able to create the effect, if you peek at that, it's going to change how the item sits. Do also remember that you can play around with the viewport and where it starts to take effect. But I can do a different video on that, on how to use Elementor animations and in relation to the viewport. So if you think that would be helpful, do let me know in the comments below and I'll make that tutorial. But let's have a look at preview. It does that sometimes. Don't worry, we're just working too quickly. Look at that. That's really nice. Just quickly show you that you can horizontal scroll this one. So I'll just exaggerate that for the time being. So come on down and scroll. Look at that. Looks really, really nice. Okay. Now I don't want to overdo it, so I'm just going to stop this and let's look at a few other ways that we can create a sense of depth. Okay, we're going to grab this container here, and we're again going to go to, oh my god, I've forgotten, advanced, and transform. And what we would, motion effects. And what we would like to do is go to scrolling effects. Now there are tons of these things that you can do in Elementor, so have a play with all of them. And we're going to do vertical scroll again. Okay, so we're not doing it to the image as we did just now. But look at that, we've got this movement now, and so we've got the item moving and not the image behind. Okay, so that's pretty cool. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to yank this to the left. I'm not saying this is a great design, I just want to show you. And then this one, we're going to create a bit of a motion effect as well. So go along to scrolling effects, vertical scroll, and I would like this one to move a bit slower. And on all of these, we're going to bang on a shadow. So I'm just doing this really quite crudely. Now there are far more, more superior ways to do it than this, but I'm just quickly putting something together for you there. But you can see that we definitely have depth in our design there. Now the idea is that you would like the items in front to move faster, so have more of a speed than the items behind it. So you layer it, so fast, medium, fast, medium, and then slower. So that's what we would want to keep in mind when playing with all of these. Great, so look at that. It's not the finest example of it, but just so you know how to do it, that which is closest to us is going to move faster. That's how 3D vision works. And so you can play with all of this and you'll really start to get some great effects. But this shows you the basics on how you can start, messing around with that. Now, so far, to create a bit of depth in our designs, we've used shadows, positioning, and movement. Now, these are pretty exciting things to use, to be honest, in our designs. And the fourth one, I must say I use very, very sparingly, but I have used it on occasion and clients have really loved it. And the reason why I want to show it is just to show that it's in Elementor. A lot of people don't actually realize that it's there, and it's just a nice little touch on some designs. And so what this is the actual ability to 3D tilt and transform an item that you have here. So let's have a look at that. Let's pop along to our edit page. Here we are, and what should we do? We're going to create a new section actually. Boosh, boosh. Okay, that looks quite nice. And what we're going to do is just grab an image. It'll look great with that. So putting an image in there, going to need to bring the width in a little bit. So something like that is pretty cool for now. Okay, just created a bit of space there for us to have a look at this. So what we have here is a nice bit of text and then a nice image. That's great. And shadow, we could definitely put a shadow on this. That would work really well. That would bring it out a bit. We can't really position so much because this is a nice white design, and the movement would just kind of chop it all up everywhere. And sometimes just keeping it a little bit simple is nice. So if we go along to advanced, and then down to transform. Okay, so it's in the advanced transform. And what we have here is rotate. But click on there, and then we have 3D rotate. And this is just a lovely little tool to play with when it suits. Okay, so toggle it on, and then, whoa, my gosh. Okay, so it's very sensitive. So that looks quite nice. Now, come on, that is creating some depth, isn't it? It's a lovely perspective tool. We can do the y-axis as well. So I would say that it's best to have something very, very subtle. So I recently did a design where I had it more just sort of like this, and then I brought the size in. And then I created a bit of a shadow, and you'll see what I mean. So let's just sort of recreate that. I'm going to bring that in, and actually going to bring this in so we've got it in from the edge a bit and center it. There we go. Okay, that looks nicer, doesn't it? So we've just got this bit of this perspective here. So again, hold the element, advanced, back to transform. It's in rotate, and then we've got 3D rotate. And you've got the perspective here as well. I just want this on minus. What did I have it on? Just very subtle. Okay, so let's add a bit of a shadow onto this. So style and box shadow. And we're going to need to play with the horizontal and the vertical here, aren't we, to make it appropriate for the angle that we have. And we just want something really quite nice and subtle, but it will just emphasize that depth that we have on that perspective. You get the idea. Let's preview that, and look at that. That's really cool. Now, obviously that is assisted with the shadow again, but it worked anyway without the shadow. We can actually bring the size up a little bit so that we can see it a bit more. And also, I'll just let you know that we have a hover option as well with this. So transform and select hover, 3D rotate, and we would want to copy the values maybe and then play with them, because I'm just going to go overboard here. There we are, just a bit of movement. Look at that, nice. Just to show you that you have that. Preview again, and look at that. I think you'll agree that not only is that showing a bit of depth, such as on these items here, but we've also just got that added little perspective trick there with the 3D transform and rotate. So that one is definitely one to have a little play with. It won't suit all designs, but you can imagine this on a product page for WooCommerce, which you can make in Elementor Pro. If you'd like a tutorial on that, let me know. And you can imagine, this would really set off the product image, and then you'd have all of the text there and the button. That would look great. You can obviously line up a few different items and just really bring in that perspective. So if you've got some on the left and some on the right, you're going to really be able to play with all of that and bring real depth into your page. That with some tasteful animations and use of shadows, and then yeah, it's all there to have, and it's all in Elementor. Have a try with those first of all, and then just see what combinations you can come up with. So there we have it. That is how to start to play with a sense of depth in your designs and how to use that in Elementor. If you would like to go further into animations, as I mentioned in the video, then please do let me know in the comments below, and I could bring that into my tutorial list. Aside from that, like, subscribe, check out another one of my videos, and have a great day. I'll see you in the next video.